that should have been like a huge red flag. To go along with all of these conversations where Ivy is just pushing RJ onto Electra in a way that it seems like Ivy is the one with the crush on RJ, which maybe it will still be the case. I might feel a slightly better about the storyline is if after this whole thing falls apart for Ivy, if she tries to get close to RJ like a creep. What is up, Bold and the Beautiful fans? I have a very quick review on this past week of Bold and the Beautiful because it was not a good week of the Bold and the Beautiful. I fear that when Sheila and Deacon are not around, the show is in the shitter because I think this past week of episodes, the week of April 13th to 17th, is an example of Bradley Bell's bad writing and why I stopped watching the show for over 3 years until recently. I do want to point that out for anyone new to my reviews of the show. I had not watched Bold and the Beautiful for over 3 years until last month again. And while I have enjoyed the campiness and the over-the-top drama that can come along with the show, it still has a lot of weaknesses, and that weakness is always Bradley Bell's writing. This week of episodes was all about the younger set, which I think I can chalk up to being a fail at this point, because not only is there a lot of bad acting with the younger set, unfortunately, but it doesn't help that the show writes them all to be so dumb. I think that is always a problem with plot-driven writing, is that your characters eventually become dumb. Electra having to be the biggest dummy if it took her this long to figure out that Ivy was trying to control her love life like a weirdo. First thing I want to talk about, though, before we get into the younger set, is this Logan and versus Forrester storyline, which has potential to be good, or at least did at one point. We haven't really seen it much over the past few weeks because the Sheila and Deacon stuff was getting all the airtime. But now that we see it again, and Brooke is visiting Katie at Logan and trying to make Katie feel bad about using Eric's designs that Eric drew up when he was working for Logan, Brooke is trying to make Katie feel bad, saying that Eric is depressed and ashamed. Brooke asking Katie who she will steal from next when she runs out of Eric's designs. And Katie again had to explain to Brooke that when a person does work for a company, the company owns those designs. And that's the biggest thing that was irking me in these scenes for this particular storyline. It's because Brooke and Ridge sound like bumbling fools, like they've been in the business for how long? For this entire show's run, 3-4 decades now, and yet they don't understand that these designs weren't stolen, that Eric was working for Logan at the time. So idiotic. And then in later scenes, Brooke and Ridge are talking about it again and talking about how Katie and Bill have nothing after Eric's designs and will have to steal again, even though they didn't steal Eric's designs in the first place. So just stupid. And why the storyline also isn't going to be good for me is because it's a foregone conclusion that in the long run, something's going to happen to Logan or Forrester's going to win out if it really is a war, because that's how it always is. Rinse and repeat, which is Bradley Bell's writing. On to the younger set, though. We had to suffer through a lot this week. And as the week went on, I just fast-forwarded through more and more scenes. I got sick of seeing Will and RJ bicker off and on all week. At the start of the week, when they had their actual little scuffle that turned physical, that was fine. But then as the week went along, they had more and more arguments, and I was already over it. And then, to make matters worse, and to make the Electra character look worse, even though the way they write it, they act like Electra and Will should be the ones that get together. But Electra is congratulating Dylan on getting her first paycheck. And Electra is saying that Dylan can do the decent and proper thing now and move out of Will's house, as if one paycheck is going to be able to get her a place to rent in LA, of all places. So Electra looked ridiculous saying that. I mean, I guess maybe it does fit Electra's character that she is, she comes from a rich background and has no sense of how expensive things actually are. But she looked like an asshole there. And then Dylan did the right thing, she says, and told Will that she is going to move out. This came, however, after Electra confronted Will, saying Dylan has to move out now. She got her first paycheck. She should go. Now is the last chance for Dylan and Will to have any kind of relationship with her, is if Dylan moves out now. I was honestly kind of exhausting watching Electra this entire week. She was on way too much. The acting is already not so great, no offense, but it's not. But then to have to hear her carry on and on. Honestly, her and Will had 2 episodes back to back where I feel like they just said the same thing over and over. Electra just repeated herself about how Will hurt her feelings, as if Electra hasn't done wrong, as if Electra hasn't been getting close to RJ. And I feel like the show wants us to think, well, Electra didn't really want to get close to RJ. Ivy pushed it to happen, just like Ivy's been weirdly pushing so much where Electra is concerned. And it's just not hitting. I think the writing this week was extremely weak for this younger set. And as I've said in the past couple weeks, whenever the last time this story was unfortunately getting a lot of screen time, Dylan and Will are the characters that actually have chemistry, and that's really all that matters to me on most soap operas, especially on soap operas that have terrible writing like Bradley Bell has with these stories. So having to suffer through RJ versus Will scenes and Electra and Will scenes arguing all week was not only bad, but just frankly exhausting. And this is coming from an 18-minute show without commercials, and yet it was still kind of exhausting. So didn't love that. Thought that all was pretty bad television. And in the end, at least it seems like Electra finally was able to see the truth about Ivy. This came after Daphne was being nosy per usual, because all these adults are so nosy on this show about the younger people's relationships. That was another thing with this entire week. All of the adults' stories kind of revolved around their kids' relationships or trying to figure out these younger co-workers' relationships. It's weird. But yes, Daphne was overhearing Electra not take Will back, saying it's basically too late. And so Daphne finally decided to tell Electra the truth about the letter that I guess Electra left. I was not watching at that point, but I guess Ivy stole the letter, and Electra always thought that Will read the letter that she wrote for him and just left her necklace or something behind, and they never spoke about it because this is just plot-driven writing. But Daphne said that someone wanted to keep Will and Electra apart and told Electra to talk to her Aunt Ivy. So Electra did finally talk to Ivy, and Electra brought up the letter. She asked Ivy if she took the letter, and Ivy took the letter out of her purse, so Electra realized that she had it and that Will never read it. And I guess finally learns that Ivy has been keeping her and Will apart. But the stupidity of it all is that if Electra actually had a brain, or if any of these characters were smart, because if it wasn't plot-driven writing, Electra should have been able to figure this out weeks ago. I was talking about weeks ago that when Ivy decided to log into Electra's social media and post a picture of Electra and RJ together, and then Electra realized that Ivy did it, that should have been like a huge red flag. To go along with all of these conversations where Ivy is just pushing RJ onto Electra in a way that it seems like Ivy is the one with the crush on RJ, which maybe it will still be the case. I might feel a slightly better about the storyline is if after this whole thing falls apart for Ivy, if she tries to get close to RJ like a creep. I don't know if they're related. I don't know who's related on this show anymore, but the whole thing has not been good. This was not a good week of Bold and the Beautiful. I was not entertained like the last few weeks with the over the top dramatic writing because I think this younger set storyline is a failure.